I did everything right and they indicted me. And I don't know what the I'm doing. Antifa!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special live stream of the Katie Halper Show. We are doing a special daytime live stream, and we do this because we love to bring on guests like Dr. Mohammad Marandi, who lives in Tehran. So obviously, it's very inconvenient for him to come on to the show when we stream live on Tuesdays. So thank you so much to all of you tuning in, and thank you, of course, to Dr. Mohammad Marandi, the hardest working man in Tehran, perhaps, at least when it comes to media appearances. And if you are here, and we know you're here because I'm talking to you right now, please do give a thumbs up. That's a great way to make sure that people find out about the stream. It helps with the algorithm. We definitely want to make sure that people hear the voices on the show, especially when they're voices like these, which, to say the least, are either silenced or vilified when they are allowed to be on mainstream media, something that we've gone over with Dr. Marandi in the past. So give a thumbs up. Also, if you haven't already subscribed, please do subscribe. And you can do that by hitting subscribe and then the bell. And that way you know about all of these streams moving forward. And of course, please do become Patreon supporters at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show, because we could not do this show without your Patreon support. If you can afford $5 a month, that's amazing. And you get bonus content. You'll get this entire stream, for instance. If you can't swing that and you can just do $1 a month, so $12 a year, that also is extremely helpful. So we're just going to get the show on the road. Again, thank you everyone so much for coming. And I'm going to bring on... Oh, sorry about that. Whoops.
Is something amiss with... I'll just let Dr. Marandi know Katie's microphone just had a hiccup, and so she is resolving it right now since Dr. Marandi can't see us.
Okay, I know what that was. Sorry about that. Yes, sorry about that. All right.
Okay.
That was a dramatic delay because I had another window open. All right, so I'm the one in the United States where we apparently have a good internet connection, and yeah, I'm the one delayed. But with that as a wonderful transition and segue, I'm bringing back onto the show Dr. Marandi, professor at Tehran University. Welcome back, Dr. Marandi.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure.
Of course. Thank you for joining. And again, just so grateful that you are generous with your time and are willing to speak to us about something that, you know, we really can't get your perspective on. As I mentioned, it's either absent, or if it's on, it's presented like it is by Piers Morgan in a way that's very, you know, othering and vilifying. So tell us what is it like right now? You're in Tehran right now. What is the atmosphere like? What are people feeling? Obviously, you are a huge country. You're not a monolith, but from the to the extent that you can, what's the ambiance like right now where you are?
Well, in Iran, Thursdays and Fridays are a weekend, and this Wednesday was a holiday. So we've had a 3-day weekend. When you go out, it's not all that crowded. At least today wasn't very crowded at all. There was a lot of coverage of the negotiations today on television. And I spoke to a few friends about the negotiations, 2 or 3 friends, after they came to an end, maybe 3, 4 friends. In general, I think that people are satisfied that Iran is negotiating, but also I think people are expecting that the government doesn't give ground. In fact, there are polling, a lot of polling is done in Iran. There are 5 or 6 very credible polling institutes in Iran that I know of. And ever since the 12-day war, the mood in Iran with regards to nuclear weapons has changed. And right now, in the last poll that I saw, which is recent, the majority of Iranians want nuclear weapons. And so the leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, he's among the minority now. And I think that is something that a lot of these elites in the West don't take into consideration, that by constantly threatening Iran, they're pushing ordinary Iranians towards the view that we should have nuclear weapons, even though that's not state policy, that's not something that the leader approves, nor the Supreme National Security Council and state institutions, but this has created a shift in the mood. So in general, I think that people are, I'm guessing, because I don't know how people are responding to today's events, but I think they are generally skeptical of the United States being able to do a deal with Iran and sticking to that deal, because I think we all remember that last time round we had these indirect negotiations, and it was during those negotiations that the United States under Trump conspired with Netanyahu to carry out a blitzkrieg attack against the country. So we're sort of seeing the same thing happening again, where we're having indirect negotiations in Oman. And so people are wondering if this is again going to lead to another surprise attack, or is the United States this time around going to be more reasonable and push towards some sort of resolution? Personally, I'm not very optimistic about a deal. I don't think Trump is the sort of person who can do a deal, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. So initially, Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi, is that how I pronounce it? Araghchi? Close enough. Okay.
That's good.
Okay, good enough. Called the talks a, quote, very good start. And he said, quote, the mistrust that has developed is a serious challenge facing negotiations. We must first address this issue and then enter into the next level of negotiations. And then, of course, only a couple of hours after these talks, new sanctions were levied against 15 entities involved in the sale of Iranian oil, and 14 so-called shadow fleet vessels were additionally identified as transporting the crude. What are your thoughts on this latest round of sanctions and how they will affect these talks?
Well, the sanctions are not new. Every few weeks, the United States expands the sanctions regime, and it's not going to have much of an impact because most of Iran's oil is sold to China, and some of it is sold on to different entities, private entities usually, and it will continue. They'll just change the name of the company or change the name of the CEO. I don't know how it works, but during the past few years, ever since President Raisi was elected, Iran began working hard to export its oil under sanctions. And so gradually under his presidency, Iran's oil exports increased until they reached maximum capacity, and the discounts gradually decreased until they were almost at normal price. And under President Pezeshkian, the current president, that policy continues. So I don't think Iran has much difficulty in exporting oil, and we already have maximum pressure sanctions. So there'll probably be some changes and some maneuvering, but it won't have an impact. But what it does do is it just shows that the United States does not have, or the government of the United States is not showing goodwill. It thinks that the only way to deal with Iran is through antagonism, through threats, and that obviously doesn't work. It never has worked, and it only creates a greater incentive for Iran to improve ties with Russia, with China, with BRICS countries, with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. In fact, Katie, one of the interesting things is that let's say, about 9 years ago, if even though we had poor relations with the United States, um, a lot of Iranians, especially elites and liberals and the business class, and many students from elite universities, who are usually, they're economically speaking, they're usually from families that do well or are not doing poorly. Um, usually they would still want, they would have, back then, the view was that to have improved relations with the West, many of these people, than improve relations or explore new relations with China and Russia, for example. But after Trump became president the first time, and by increasing the antagonism towards Iran and also murdering General Soleimani and other anti-Iranian acts, the view began to change. And increasingly, Iranians began to think that we have to explore relations with Russia.
Right.
Under Biden, this continued to be the same. But then again, after Trump came to power, that shift took another big step. In other words, during Trump's first presidency, there was a shift, a subtle shift, but during his second presidency, there's been a big shift in public opinion with regards to where Iran should go. And now, both among politicians from different political persuasions, but also among ordinary people, there's a much stronger consensus today that we should be developing ties with non-Western countries and putting more focus on that. So to a large degree, Trump himself has created this shift in the popular mood away from the United States, more than other presidents, especially this time round.
Interesting. So this is, again, I mean, we've seen this throughout history, right? The U.S. Shoving people into the arms of its enemies, right? We saw this with, for instance, Cuba and the Soviet Union, where had we not done certain things to Cuba, they would have been, I'm sure, more non-aligned. Castro started out much more nationalist than he did communist. And of course, with our help, he became very he had to become aligned with the Soviet Union. I'm not saying that to malign the Soviet Union or to deny him of agency, but we do see the United States doing this quite a bit. What do you think this is? What is behind this? Is this just Trump's egomania? Is this actually a neocon agenda that wants to kind of ratchet things up? What is it, a combination?
I think it's especially this time round. I don't recall the details of 7-8 years ago what the reasons were, but my understanding is that now it's basically because people are saying it's useless to attempt to improve relations with the United States. It's a hopeless case because the United States is controlled by Zionism and neocons, and they will never allow for improved relations with Iran because they prioritize the interests of the Israeli regime. So, for example, when President Pezeshkian went a few months ago, I don't know if your audience remembers this or they were following this, a few months ago when the Shanghai Cooperation Organization had its summit in China, in Beijing, and President President Pezeshkian participated with his daughter because his wife passed away, so he went with his daughter, and he was standing behind President Xi. And in general, the perception among liberals in Iran was much more positive than I had expected in their online media outlets, because usually they're very critical and they don't like this, or many of them don't. But their position has shifted after the 12-day war. I think that the 12-day war was a big change. It brought about a big change, and that pushed Iranians towards believing that we need to both public opinion develop nuclear weapons, but also develop better ties with Russia, China, and other BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation Organization nations.
So, do you think that the United States is going to hasten kind of its own collapse by strengthening connections between our adversaries?
I think there are many reasons for this, and I know I've seen your show before, and I know that you've covered this, and that you have better people than I who could comment on how what is the state of the U.S. empire and its global hegemony. But I think that the United States, both because of its economic policies at home, its endless wars abroad, and it's the arrogance of the state in being unable to accommodate other powers, other countries, other entities, and it's really mindless support for Zionism and genocide. All these things combined have, I think, are pushing the United States towards a very bad place. And it's interesting, by the way, Katie, that I'm somewhat surprised. If I was the Iranian, if I was someone in charge in Iran, I would probably be doing more about this. But Epstein, the whole Epstein issue is not really on state television or any of the government TV channels. There are websites and Telegram channels and online programs from private individuals or public entities that have their own media that are discussing Epstein. But it's interesting that for some reason it's not really of great interest to the government TV channels. They're not pursuing it as much. Maybe they're prioritizing the situation with the United States. But I would have imagined that they would have been more interested in this. But I do think that, in my personal opinion, that the whole Epstein scandal is going to further contribute to the weakening of the U.S. position globally, because it decreases the legitimacy of the state's actions both at home and abroad. There is speculation in Iran about what the whole Epstein affair what impact it will have on U.S.-Iran relations. Some believe that in the long run, it will strengthen Iran because it will make it more difficult for Trump to lead and to push an agenda, because he's been weakened as a moral leader in the eyes of his own people. But some others believe that the United States or Trump may use this situation, or may, in order to escape this situation, he may carry out a war or an attack on Iran to distract attention away from the Epstein affair.
Right. Yes. Like Bill Clinton did kind of famously with Monica Lewinsky, when he used missiles were launched at suspected, quote unquote, suspected terrorist bases in Afghanistan and a pharmaceutical plant in Sudan, just 3 days after Clinton testified before a grand jury regarding his relationship with Monica Lewinsky. So a kind of similar phenomenon that we see. In fact, a friend of mine was like, wow, I can't believe that the Epstein files came out and he didn't bomb Iran. And we'll circle back later on in this interview to the Epstein files and the Epstein class and what's revealed by them, because I think it is very important and has a lot to do with both what will happen moving forward, but it also reveals a lot about how things have happened so far. But just going back a little bit to the issue of Iran and these negotiations, you know, I want to read you something that, and trigger warning, everyone. Oh, Brad, sorry, I didn't have this ready, so I'll just do a screen share with this. But trigger warning, everyone. This is going to be a screen share of friend of show, just kidding, enemy, John Fetterman, the great John Fetterman, extremely Zionist John Fetterman. He tweeted out a screenshot from the Wall Street Journal, and the article says, the Wall Street Journal says, U.S. and Iran gather for high-stakes nuclear talks. Okay, so that's the headline he shows. And then his comment on this is, I truly don't see the value in this. The world knows Iran will never honor any treaty. The last treaty with Iran led to 900 pounds near weapon-grade enriched uranium. So what are your thoughts on this Fetterman outburst?
Well, it's actually the other way around. It's because Trump tore up the deal in 2015, discontinuing its commitments to the nuclear deal. So as long as the deal was in place, despite the fact that Obama was constantly violating the deal, but as long as the deal was in place, the Iranians were abiding by their side of the bargain, even though the Americans weren't. And people in Iran were criticizing the Iranian government. They were saying, well, the Americans under Obama are violating the deal. You should start violating too. But for whatever reason, the administration at that time decided not to do so. And when Trump tore up the deal for a full year after he left, after he tore up the deal, and then after the first year, in 5 stages, every 2 months, they decreased their commitments to the deal. So after 2 years, the Iranians discontinued full in carrying out their commitments within the framework of the JCPOA. So it's the exact opposite. It's because the United States left that deal that the Iranians, after waiting for 2 years, decided to restart their peaceful nuclear program and push ahead with it and to develop it, expand it both technologically, but also the scope of the program.
Right. Yeah, these people are, it's almost unfair to bring up Fetterman because he's not, frankly, all there. But even a demented Fetterman isn't that far away from a totally rational politician, just because the policies of U.S. politicians are so demented, regardless of the state of their brains. So what is the what do you think about what people like? I'm sorry to show another terrible person's comments, but I just wanted to give you a chance to respond to these people because I think it's worth shooting them down, metaphorically. So Mark Levin, who hosts this really conservative show, the Mark Levin Show, went on Twitter yesterday declaring it's time to militarily attack Iran. If we can't get our military assets fully in place in 5 weeks to attack Iran, a regime with virtually no Navy or Air Force and massive internal unrest, then we have a very serious problem. After all, we're not talking about China or Russia. And then today he urged, give peace a chance, destroy Khomeini and his genocidal regime today, which is really funny to say give peace a chance and at the same time call for war. So what do you have to say about both his kind of analysis of your country's military preparedness, and then about the claim that it is a genocidal regime?
Well, 2 things. One, again, I'm sorry for saying this because I know you cover these things on your show, and it's just stating the obvious to your viewers who are, I know they're politically aware because that's why they come to listen to you. But the fact is that, you know, when people like him make these statements, he's well known to be highly influential and close to Trump.
Yeah.
And that is, in fact, what causes people outside the United States, and maybe inside the United States, but outside the United States, to view this, it creates an incentive, let's say, for anti-Semitism. So, for example, yourself as a Jew, you're not nearly as well known as him, nor as, you know, Max Blumenthal or other young. I say young because you're, you're all younger than me. But Aaron Mate and all these others, you're all anti-war. You're all anti-discrimination and anti-Zionism, but his voice carries because it's close to the state.
Right.
It's close to the state apparatus. So people like him and others with the same narrative and the same language, they are the ones whose voices are heard loud and clear. So that's A, and I'm sure your viewers already know this. But although a lot of people in Iran are very politically aware, and you do see people, for example, in Iran, a lot of Jewish activists are invited to Iran. They come to programs in Iran. We do have a Jewish community, and they've spoken out repeatedly against the genocide in Gaza and so on. So, fortunately, the policy of the state is to make a clear distinction. It's always been to make a clear distinction between Zionism and Judaism. That's been the policy from day one during the revolution itself. But in any case, what he does is that he harms the image of Jews because he is basically, these people are making themselves self-declared spokespeople for everyone.
Right.
But the second thing is that it also creates this image that we are now, and I think it's a somewhat accurate image, that we are now living in the law of the jungle, with the law of the jungle, and that anything goes. So you can just get up in the morning and hear that the United States has killed the president of Nigeria, or kidnapped the president of Venezuela, or, murdered the prime minister of Cambodia. That's to be expected now. And what that does is that it creates a greater tension. It creates greater hostility, and the chances for war and skirmishes and increase, and the hostility towards the United States in particular increases, because countries like Iran become more wary of the United States. But I think that the Iranians have been very clear that if Trump attacks Iran, Iran is going to see this as an all-out war. So, for example, over the past few weeks, messages did come from the United States to Iran saying that, look, we're going to carry out this small attack, and then you just accept it, or you carry out your own token attack. But the Iranians have responded to the United States, to Trump, in their messages through different means, because different countries send messages back and forth.
Right.
The Iranians said, no, any attack on Iran will take as a full-scale war. And the reason is that the Iranians are, first of all, it's aggression. But the second reason is that the Iranians are saying that the American government every few months will do this again. So they'll create some provocation, support some terrorist groups, carry out some attacks somewhere in Iran, say that these are innocent people, and then they'll come again to attack, or use some other excuse. Well, it's never stopped, but in any case, they'll use the nuclear program as an excuse to attack, or some false flag operation somewhere will take place, and then they'll use that as. So the Iranians are saying that no, we have to make sure that the Americans understand that if they attack us, they are going to pay a heavy price. So if there's an attack on Iran, whether it's an attempted assassination or it's an attack on a military base, it doesn't matter. The Iranians are going to hit very hard in order to make sure that this does not happen again in the future. So what he is proposing is going to lead to a global crisis. Why a global crisis? Because Iran is situated alongside the Persian Gulf, and much of the oil and gas and energy from that is used across the world comes from the Persian Gulf. And it's if you look from the Caucasus to the Persian Gulf, the Iranians have easy access to all the major oil and gas facilities. And if there's war, Iran could stop and will stop all of them, and that will lead to a global economic meltdown. Now, some people in the United States say that, well, we are self-sufficient. That won't change anything because those oil companies will make a lot of money for a few days until the economy collapses everywhere. But ordinary Americans, the consumers, they're going to have to pay extremely expensive gasoline, electricity, and so on. And that's going to stop the economy. Factories will shut down, businesses will shut down, life will become very difficult, not just for Americans, but for people across the world, because everywhere in the world, people need energy. So an attack on Iran would lead to major global ramifications, which ordinary Americans would not escape. It's not, and by the way, I should have said this earlier, not that small in Iran who think like him in a certain way, not like him, I don't want to insult them, but they believe that Iran should attack the U.S. forces now, and that they should just get this over with. And I don't believe they're the majority view. I don't know any poll numbers, anything like that, but that's not the policy of the government or the administration or the Supreme National Security Council. But there are those who are saying that, look, we have to engage militarily with Trump and get this over with, so that he learns a lesson, and that they never try to intimidate Iran in future again and try to constantly threaten Iran with military force. So you do have those people in Iran who have this sort of view.
Right. And that's, I think, something that often gets lost. I mean, we see this with Russia too, because people just assume that there's one kind of identity, like a monolith in Russia, a monolith in Iran. And obviously both of these countries are huge, but people aren't aware of the fact that, although it should be obvious, I mean, people who watch this show are, I'd like to think, but a lot of Americans just think of like cartoon villainish monoliths. So all of Iran is either one way or the other. They don't realize that there are these internal, not even contradictions, but disagreements, which you referred to earlier. So you have people who are more belligerent, you have people who are less belligerent.
Oh, you have contradictions too. You will find people who are pro-American. You will find a small group of people who support Trump, but they are a very minute minority. But they're they'll say that openly to you. My one of my close relatives, he's retired, and he goes to the park every morning near his house, and they're like a group of other retired men and women who sit together, and one of them is pro-Trump, and to the irritation of all the others who gather together.
Wow.
So that's just an anecdotal example, but so you do have these, but the majority view in Iran, as I said, I think well, the majority view does want a nuclear weapon, although the state has said that the policy of the state is not to have one. But I don't know. I don't think the majority view is that we should carry out an attack on U.S. assets in the region right now before the Americans before Trump has done anything. But I do know that there is a segment of Iranian society that believes that way, and
Right.
it's not that small. But I don't know the numbers. I'm just guessing from my own anecdotal experiences and from that of others that there are people out there.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because Levin is very dismissive of Iran. You know, as he says in that tweet that I showed, that it's not China or and sorry if I said Levine before Levin. It's not China or Russia. It's Iran that we're talking about. I'm going to get called an anti-Semite. But Levin, I think it's because one of my best friends' last name is Levin, and I just don't want him to have anything to do with her, so that's why I changed it. But Levin portrays Iran as a backwards, like podunk nation. But it is worth noting that shortly before these talks, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, the IRGC, performed a test of their Khorramshahr. Again, I don't know how to say any of these terms because I'm so ignorant about military affairs. Khorramshahr 4 missile, which has been described as one of the most advanced hypersonic ballistic missiles. Khorramshahr 4 missile, which has been described as one of the most advanced hypersonic ballistic missiles they own. So I don't know if Levin doesn't know about these things, but what do you make of these tests right now before the talks? And as far as you know, I mean, what is Iran's military preparedness like right now in case of a war?
During the 12-day war, where Trump and Netanyahu carried out this blitzkrieg attack against Iran, after day 6, things got bad for the Israelis, and during the last 3-4 days, things were really bad. And he said right after the hostilities stopped that the real story of this 12-day war is that things were getting bad for Israel, and they needed a ceasefire because during the last 3-4 days or 2-3 days, they were being hit very hard. And so ultimately, even though they carried out a blitzkrieg attack, it was the Israeli regime that needed a ceasefire. So I think that's a good indication of Iran's capabilities. The second point that is very important, and I think people should consider very carefully, is that Iran's real military capabilities are not directed towards the Israeli regime. They're directed towards the United States. What do I mean by that? For Israel, because it's pretty far away. There's Iraq and Syria or Jordan standing between us. So the missiles have to go a pretty long way to strike their targets. But ever since 9/11 and the U.S. occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan, before 9/11 too, but especially after 9/11, Iran was surrounded. And Bush and then later Obama, they would and the people around them, they would constantly use the phrase "all options are on the table." And so the Iranians began to develop defense capabilities to protect the country against the United States. So the primary focus was not on Israel, it was the United States. It's always been the United States. Whatever it has, it's because of the United States. Itself, it's completely dependent. It's not like a competitor of Iran's, but the United States is a superpower. And so the Iranians were preparing themselves for a potential war. And so they have lots of underground bases full of mid-range missiles, short-range missiles, and drones countless drones that are ready to strike targets in the Persian Gulf and on the other side of the Persian Gulf, because the United States has bases in all these tiny Arab family regimes, and because these family regimes are seen as complicit. I mean, as we speak, the US is using its bases in these countries to plan against Iran or to plan for potential conflict with Iran. So from the Iranian perspective, they're complicit. So Iran's real firepower is not directed towards the Israeli regime, because those medium-range drones or missiles or short-range missiles, they don't reach Israel. They reach Dubai, they reach Doha, they reach Kuwait City, they reach US assets or assets affiliated to the US or assets affiliated to governments that are cooperating with the US. And they can easily destroy everything in the Persian Gulf. And of course, it's a very sensitive area. So if there is war, it would, for the Iranians, be a war of survival. So the firepower that Iran has that's directed towards the US is much, much greater than the firepower that it used with regards to the Israelis. Then there are two other points that I should add. One is that you should also add this fact that the Iranians, they haven't fought a war for decades. Ever since Saddam invaded Iran, the 12-day war was the first time that Iran's capabilities were put into action. And they learned a lot about their shortcomings and their strengths and how to improve their offensive capabilities and improve their defensive capabilities and how the government should better protect its officials and its assets. So over the past few months, the Iranians have become much more prepared for war. Then there's the final point, and that is that the leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, he said that if there's a war this time around, it will be a regional war. And we've seen Iraqis go to the streets and sign up for fighting. And we also saw one of the Iraqi resistance groups show footage of an underground missile base in Iraq. So Iraq is a country of 45 to 48 million people. So Yemen, Iraq, Iran, if all of these countries get involved, there is no way for the United States to win. I mean, US allies in the region, like Qatar, has a population of 400,000. The Emirates has a population of 1.3 million. The rest are all foreigners. And if a few missiles strike the Emirates, who knows, maybe the overwhelming majority of people who are indentured servants and workers, they'll take over the country. The same would be possibly true in Dubai and Qatar. So these tiny countries are not real allies that the United States can count on. So in my opinion, if there is a conflict between Iran and the United States, it would be catastrophic for the world, but it's not a fight that the United States would win.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, listen to that, Levin and Fetterman. Someone else who I would
I don't think he really, and I'm speculating from here. I don't think that Levin, among others, really takes this into consideration, because I think that for him, the priority is the needs of Netanyahu. And if the United States is sacrificed for the Israeli regime, then so be it. So I don't think these arguments would work for him.
Right. But won't this blow back on Israel if this were to be done? That's kind of the irony, right?
Oh, yes, without a doubt. The Iranians have said that they will strike Israel hard. For example, the missile that you spoke of, Khorramshahr-4, it has a payload of 1,500 kilos, 3 times that of, let's say, a Tomahawk. And it's a hypersonic missile, so it will come in very fast and very hard. And Iran has many, many such missiles and many, many underground bases that cannot be destroyed. So it would be very bad for the Israeli regime. But most importantly, if the global economy goes downhill, then the U.S. economy goes downhill. And when that happens, that hurts Israel because they're totally dependent. And in addition to that, I think a lot of people in the United States and across the West will blame Israel for this war because they're the ones pushing for it. So I think it'll be very bad for the Israelis. It will be bad for the world. I mean, war is a horrible thing in general. It's only nice I guess, for young people who are playing computer
Right.
games or online games or something like that. But in the real world, it's a horrible thing. I've fought in war. I was a volunteer when Saddam invaded the country. I've survived 2 chemical attacks. I was shot. I have a shrapnel wound. I've had friends who were martyred in front of me. War is not a good thing at all. But I think ultimately it would the biggest loser would be Trump and the neocons, because people will see them as responsible, and Zionists, because people will see them as responsible for the war. So I don't think it will be good for Israel at all.
Right.
But I think Netanyahu, like Trump, cares more about Netanyahu than Israel, just like I think Trump cares more about Trump than about the United States.
Right. Well, and another person who I would like to listen to you, if only we could make this like a weekly chat between Dr. Marandi and bad people. I will serve as the interlocutor, of course, is Marco Rubio. And I want to show a video of him. This is actually from Wednesday. And here are his thoughts on the divide between basically the people of Iran and the government of Iran. Let's take a listen.
The fundamental problem Iran faces and the regime faces right now is that what people are on the streets complaining about.
And sorry, Dr. Marandi, are you able to hear it? I know you can't see it.
I
But
can hear it, yes.
Okay,
I can hear.
The fundamental problem Iran faces and the regime faces right now is that what people are on the streets complaining about, this regime cannot address. They cannot address it because it's economic. Those problems remain. And one of the reasons why the Iranian regime cannot provide the people of Iran the quality of life that they deserve is because they're spending all their money, they're spending all their resources of what is a rich country, sponsoring terrorism, sponsoring all these proxy groups around the world, exporting, as they call it, their revolution. But I remind everybody what I've been saying through my entire career in public service. I said it in my hearing when I was asking for confirmation through the Senate. The Iranian people and the Iranian regime are very unalike. In essence, what the Iranian people want, this is a culture with a deep history. These are people that are the leadership of Iran at the clerical level does not reflect the people of Iran. I know of no other country where there's a bigger difference between the people that lead the country and the people who live there. And so our hope resides in that. As far as the president's views on the way protesters were treated, he was very clear about it. And as you saw, part of what the president said publicly prevented mass executions that were being planned and we're on the precipice of. And obviously beyond that, the president retains a number of options to how he responds to that and future events.
So, what are your thoughts on that? He's he sounds like so good
One
natured.
is that, well, first of all, that's what he says about any country that he does not like. So whether it's Cuba or Venezuela or Russia, of course, now he's more cautious about Russia, but the fact remains that, he's been saying the same thing about Venezuela, and we saw people come to the streets when they murdered, after they murdered people on the boats, and then they murdered people as they kidnapped President Maduro and his wife.
Celia Flores.
To, people in Venezuela went to the streets and in outrage. So so his narrative in the case of Venezuela is not the case. It's not valid. In the case of Iran, we also saw after the riots, people come to the streets protesting against the riots. And they were huge. The crowds in Tehran, 3 million people, across the country, many millions. But most importantly, I think, was the 12-day war itself. His calculation and the calculation of Trump and the government was that when they carry out this blitzkrieg attack, the so-called regime, as he likes to call it, so sort of makes him feel, I guess, good to insult Iran. The so-called regime was supposed to collapse, but we saw the exact opposite. We saw people rally to support the state and state institutions against the United States and the Israeli regime. So I think the problem that people like him have is that, first of all, the neocons and the Zionists basically control him, and that's why he supported the genocide in Gaza during this well over 2 years. So I guess that's itself more than enough. But one of the problems that you have in the United States is that you have this sort of like the Cuba lobby, but you have these these so-called Iranian exiles or
Right.
Immigrants or expatriates who are very hostile towards Iran, and they have a vested interest in hostility because they are very well funded. There are, I don't know right now how many channels there are, but there's something like 200 to 300 TV channels in the United States and Europe that are funded by governments in Persian that are anti-Iranian. So the number of Persian language TV channels that are hostile towards the Iranian government are far greater than the number of TV channels that exist in Iran, maybe 10 to 1. And the Iranian channels are mostly TV movies or children's programs, or you only have one news channel, and 3 or 4 of the major channels, they have an evening news program or night news program. But many of these channels are like 24 hours a day, just hostile and putting out disinformation and trying to create fear among Iranians. So a lot of these people work for these TV stations or for websites, or for there are many, maybe tens of thousands of people, so-called Iranians, who are funded by the US government or European governments. 4,000 of them, maybe 4,000, maybe it's 3,000 to 4,000, are in Albania in a camp where they are trolls, and that's their job. And they live in Albania. They live in that camp. They're online trolls, and they have many accounts. So there's a lot of people with a vested interest, and these Iranians have a lot of influence.
Mm-hmm.
They get funding from the U.S. government or other governments, and then they give some of that money to politicians. They invite them to give speeches. They invite them to their programs, and so it's sort of like it's a vicious circle. These politicians fund these Iranian groups and these people, and then these people fund these politicians, and you know how it all works. So the United States believes the propaganda, I think, of the people that they fund. And these people are always telling them the regime is unpopular, it's about to fall, it's corrupt, it's about to implode, people hate it. But they've been saying that ever since I was a teenager, and I'm 59 years old now. Ever since I was like 13, 12, they've been saying that Iran, the regime, as they like to call it, is unpopular. People hate it. It's about to implode. That's all I've ever heard. I've never heard anyone say, oh, it's popular. They have popular support. The people support it, and so on. But in 3 or 4 days from now, there's going to be we'll have the anniversary of the revolution on February the 11th, and there will be rallies across the country, and obviously there'll be rallies in Tehran too, and people can see if people are actually going to the streets or not. The fact is, by the way, that yes, the economy is not in a good situation, but that is because of the sanctions more than anything else. Right. I mean, it's just like in the case of Venezuela. The Venezuelan model has failed. Yeah, you can say that, but you have your boots on the neck of the Venezuelan people. If you remove the boots or the boot, then let's see if the Venezuelan model really fails. The same is true with Cuba right now. Yeah. They've imposed a siege on Cuba. That's barbaric. yet he pretends that he is humane, but he's trying to strangle the people of Cuba. He's been strangling the people of Venezuela. He's trying to strangle the people of Iran. He's been doing it for years, and as a senator as well. And so he's the, he's the one who's violating human rights. And he's the one who, these countries look at as the antagonist, their antagonist, someone who makes children suffer. But that's how the narrative in the Western media works. People like him have great credibility among the media that's affiliated to power.
Right. Yeah. Well, speaking of power, I wanted to shift back to something you had brought up earlier, which is the importance or the significance of the Epstein files, and the Epstein class, as you referred to it. So during a recent interview, you said, "We have to keep in mind that even Western media that is opposed to Trump personally, when it comes to Iran, are all on the same page. They all belong to the Epstein class." Can you elaborate on that for us, please? If you're watching now, we just had, you are so in luck, you got this whole thing to watch. But if you're watching this later and you want to see a chat that Dr. Marandi and I have about Epstein, Zionism, and even the connection between Zionism and Wahhabism and jihad, then you can find that at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show.
Yeah, Dr. Marandi gave us a lot more time than was
Oh my God, I know.
Originally planned.
Yeah. Well, I got to get ready because I have to, even though I really just want to take a nap, but I do have to make make an appointment. So I think we should just wrap, and I will bring on that person. See, he has his notifications off. That's dangerous. Oh no, he was talking about next week, so we'll do it next week. Yeah, okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Thank you for this final additional super chat. Also, thank Professor. They were not rioters, but in the words of the West, domestic terrorists. Then there's some like violent people putting comments in. Thanks for paying for them. I'm not going to highlight them. This guy's critical. Lefties inviting Mohammad Marandi. Yeah, that's exactly how 1979 happened, and my country got wrecked. Seen this movie before. All right. Well, you're not calling for violence, so I'll play it.
Look at this. Look at this, Katie.
Bradley, your eyes are lady killers, man. Really blue. Yeah, you should hear what Norman Finkelstein had to say about them. Not about his eyes, about him. We'll say that another time. All right. Thank you for this small donation. Really appreciate it. And make sure, again, you subscribe because we are going to be doing more of these streams. Wait, hold on one second. Hold on.
What are you doing? I am not wearing colored contacts. No.
Hold on. He's reading it.
Sometimes I've seen people wear colored contacts and they're like fluorescent, like really, really bright purple and things like that. It's kind of, it almost makes people look like I don't know, something out of a Marvel movie or something.
Well, we may have one more person joining for a very short segment called "I Can't Believe You Didn't Tell Brad." Do you like that? The name of that segment?
I need to make like an intro bumper for that.
Yeah, exactly.
That segment.
It'll be, it's can you put your face on that guy from what's that movie where his head explodes?
Oh, geez.
Scanner?
I think yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Okay.
There he is.
Yay,
All right.
Yay.
All right, guys, we have a very exciting announcement. Hello, Anthony Aguilar.
Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, we can see you and hear you. So this is Anthony Aguilar. You know him and you love him from being a whistleblower, a former Green Beret who blew the whistle on the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or as Aaron Mate calls it, the Gaza Holocaust Foundation. And you are not just a whistleblower and activist. You are now running for office. So tell us what you're doing, what you're up to, Anthony.
Well, can you hear me, Katie?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm currently up in the northern part of my District 13 in the hills of North Carolina, enjoying the outdoors and rehoning my Green Beret skills to survive out in the woods, because we might need it with the way this government's going.
Oh, true.
But yeah, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure. I have just a massive amount of respect for you and your show and your voice. And you're a warrior. You're a warrior amongst the lies and hate that are out there. So thank you. But yeah, I am now. I'm running for Congress in North Carolina, in the 13th district. It's a pretty big district. Really, the focus of my platform is healthcare for all, childcare for all, affordable housing for all, and a living wage, and benefits for veterans. This area, North Carolina District 13, is very much associated to the veteran community. Fort Bragg, obviously, and a lot of people live in the county that's in the county that I live in. There are 8 counties in my district, and when we talked months, I mean, we've talked multiple times, but when we first spoke, I was very much so speaking against the atrocities and the genocide in Gaza. And when it became clear to me that the United States government is not only implicit in its complicity, but is doing so, continuing to know that the bombs we send, the political impunity that we offer, the diplomatic cover that we continue to extend, and basically just embarrassing America and Americans, that it's not something I could tolerate. So I spent the last, since I got home from Gaza, from the first week I got home from Gaza in early July, talking to Congress every week, or excuse me, every month, going up to the Hill for a week with either Doctors Against Genocide or on my own in protest, as you saw when I was arrested in the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, and going to Congress and petitioning and pleading and discussing, and largely being ignored. And the 3 answers I got from Congress when talking about a genocide and talking about our $35 trillion debt that increases as we continue to give billions of dollars to a genocidal government. And I want to make this point clear. I am not anti-Semitic. I am not anti-Jew. Zionism does not represent world Jewry, and it does not represent the Judaic faith. So I am not those things. Am I anti-Zionist? I am. So giving all of our money to a Zionist government as we have ICE agents killing Americans in our streets where they trained with the IDF, that's a fact. So I look myself in the mirror and I ask myself, what are you going to do about it? You going to give up? You just going to say, I tried, and walk away? Because that's kind of the fork of the road I was in. Hey, Tony, you did everything you could. You did more than what was asked. You served your country for 25 years. You've been wounded in combat, and you've missed every family hallmark for the last 25 years. And I looked myself in the mirror and I said, I can't walk away. I can't do nothing. So I did decide to run. I'm not running with the Democrats nor the Republicans, because they are 2 sides of the same coin in complicity and corruption. I will not associate or align myself to their values or their platform. It's been offered to me, well, running independent or running third party is a waste. And that's factually not true. That's the lie that the binary party system wants to tell you. Right now, America wants an independent third party that isn't beholden to the old ways of the GOP and the Democratic Party. They want change. And I want to be a part of that change. I want to work for the American people. And nothing would do me more honor to serve my country continuously in North Carolina's 13th district. So that's why I'm running. And this is grassroots. I'm taking no money from super PACs, PACs, APAC, lobbyists, the military industrial complex. No one will own me. I will be beholden to the people and to the people only. And I look forward to doing that, because that's what our capital needs. That's what our Congress needs. That's what our country needs, is Americans that are willing to go to Congress and put Americans first, not profit, not Zionism, not a foreign country, not endless war. So that's where I stand and why I decided to do it. I want to work hard. I want to roll up my sleeves and legislate. I know how the process works, and I want to get in there and get to work.
Well, and what party are you running with?
I'm running Green Party.
Green Party. Okay, cool. Great. So wanted to know.
And what I just wanted to caveat real quick in North Carolina, particularly in the past, that would be seen, well, that's a throwaway. Not anymore, because I am not running in the primary. I will run in the general, but I will be on the ballot. If we recall years ago when Matt Ho ran, in doing so, the Democrats tried to co-opt and take him off the ballot That's not the case anymore in North Carolina. I will be on the ballot. Your vote will not be wasted.
And they lied. They like pretended to be the Green Party. Remember that scandal? They had
Yes.
Democrat, like DNC people were pretending to be Green Party people and telling them not to
Yes.
vote for him or something.
Yes, they tried to basically co-opt his platform, which at the time was I wouldn't say it was a new strategy, but it was quite nefarious and kind of underhanded of the Democrats in the district. Again, we've learned our lesson. Don't trust either party, and we're going to run on our principles, and we're going to run hard.
Is it raining where you are? Did it just start raining?
It's light snow, which I love.
Oh, light snow. Wow. Yeah. Tell us about it. It seems to me that you've perhaps been further radicalized since you obviously have been, you were disgusted by what you saw in Gaza, but it seems to me you've become even further radicalized from when you first were speaking out to until now. Is that true? And if so, how has that happened?
You could certainly describe it that way. I would say that I've become more humanized.
Sure.
To want your government to be held accountable to the people is not a radical idea. It sure is these days, but it shouldn't be. And I truly believe in the Jeffersonian principle of when tyranny becomes the law, rebellion becomes our duty. And how do we do that? We do that with voting. We do that with exercising our constitutional rights. We do that by making our voice heard and holding our government accountable, whether it's holding our government accountable for complicity in a genocide or holding our government accountable for where they appear in the secret dossiers of Epstein Island. Either way, we must hold our government accountable. So radicalized, if that's a term, I'll gladly take it, because in that radicalization, I've come to learn the humanization. I served 25 years in the Army, served 10 combat tours, one of the locations I can't really talk about, so we'll just say 9. 12 deployments overall in 4 wars. And in doing so, I've come to realize now that we've been lied to. I was lied to. Naive, ignorant, sure, all of those things. And lied to by a government that we're supposed to trust. That now, because I've seen behind the curtain of what our government is truly involved in, especially when it comes to Israel, and this peace plan that is nothing more than a real estate venture. The fact that Israel continues to block aid and thousands die and the United States is not doing anything about it. You mentioned earlier on the show that Gaza is kind of the human azimuth, the compass of our time. And it is. That's absolutely correct, Katie. That is an absolute description of what Palestine represents right now. And when I say we are all Palestinian, what I mean is we will all be under the yoke of oppression if we do not stand up and make a change. And I firmly believe that in this country, we can do that.
Well, I want to ask you something, and I'm not very good at pushing back on people, but I do want to ask you, because the first time actually I interviewed you, I do remember this. You were saying stuff about how you believe in American values, and I was like, I'm not going to say anything. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to. And I just said, because I felt like I was going to be dishonest and almost condescending to you if I wasn't saying if I didn't share with you, like, well, I don't believe that those values ever existed. I mean, that doesn't mean that we don't aspire to them, but I don't ever think that the system worked. But on a similar note, a lot of people are saying you were serving empire before, or you were in the Army for 25 years, and then you just woke up. And people were saying this about Greg Stoker too. So what do you say to people who say basically you have blood in your hands? And I should be clear, I don't view it that way, because I'm appreciative of when people have aha moments. And I think that I would rather have people have epiphanies and change course than not. But I do also want to give, I guess, people a chance to express their reservations.
I've heard it all, Katie, so that pushback does not offend me. And I take responsibility where due in terms of I did serve my country for 25 years and fought in war that was unethical, immoral, illegal, to serve an empire, to serve colonialism. That is true. What I didn't know now and what I didn't know then and what I do not, and what I do know now, Gaza and what I witnessed there broke me. It broke the paradigm of what I saw, because no longer did I see a government that espoused that we're doing the right thing. Trust us. What I saw was, we're doing the wrong thing. We know it, and we're going to keep doing it. So it broke that paradigm, the values that I believed in. And do I still believe in the espoused American values? Equality, we're all created equal, that we should welcome immigrants, that we should treat everyone fairly, that we should not seek endless war, that we should not have everyone should be upheld to the same system of law and justice. I believe in those things. Has that been the state of our country in the last 2 decades? No, it is not. So I've had to look myself in the mirror. And to everyone out there that wants to say that you have blood on your hands, don't think that that's not something that I live with every day. Don't think that that's something that I take lightly. Don't think that that's something that I just scoff off and think, oh, bygones be bygones.
Right.
I think about that every day. One thing that stands out to me that I still reflect on, because I've always journaled, I've reflected a lot, and I had my green book. For those of you that are in the Army or have been in the Army, you know the green book. So as a lieutenant, I had my green book in when I first started journaling. And as a lieutenant, when I was shot and wounded in Iraq, the individual that was the individual, I won't call him an insurgent, the individual that was firing upon us was gravely wounded, and my interpreter dragged me into a courtyard because I couldn't walk, and the individual that had fired upon us had dragged himself, his legs were gone, into that same courtyard because it was the only place for cover. There was airstrikes. It was pretty intense. And my interpreter, because he had dragged me in there and was sitting with me, tending to me, my radio telephone operator had been killed. And this Iraqi man, this citizen, this human being, lying there dying in his gargled breath of his last minutes of life, he was speaking, and I asked my interpreter, like, what is he saying? And he was apologizing. And he said, and I was like, you know what? And I said out loud, like, what are we doing? And he said that to him. And he said, I'm fighting you because you're here. Like, I'm not a terrorist. You came here. And that's something that I'll never forget, that I didn't truly realize until decades later, sure, 2.5 decades later, in Tel al-Sultan, Rafah, Afghanistan, or Rafah, Gaza, in the Palestinian territory, when that young boy was gunned down, killed by the IDF, seeking food, or when that young girl who came to seek food at Distribution Site 4, and when we told her to leave, go home, because the IDF were going to shut the corridor, and she said to me, you go home. That stuck with me. I'm a human being. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. But I will say, did I serve my country? I did. Did I serve my country for the principles that I believed in, and did I do so morally, ethically, and legally to what I knew? I did. Looking back on it now, is there remorse? Is there regret? Is there questioning? Absolutely. But what I can bring to you now, America, is someone that spent 2 decades looking behind the curtain, seeing where our tax dollars go, seeing how the military-industrial complex corrupts our government, seeing how our government, it's not a magical formula and they know more than we do. They're simply evil and ignorant and dumb. That's the administration. We can't possibly think that they know what's better. Look at what's happening in this country. So if those that want to disregard me because of my service to the nation and call me an imperialist or blood on my hands, you're surely entitled to that opinion. There are many that don't think that. I don't think that. And I could have taken my imperial money and my imperial retirement and disappeared and taken care of Tony and Tony only and cared about myself and not worry about my fellow citizens. Yet here I am stepping up. Death threats. Threats from our government. Threats from the Israeli government. Threats against my family. Threats against me directly. Financial threats. Legal threats. Why? Why would I put myself through that? I'm doing it because I care about our country and I care about our fellow citizens. And I will gladly stand on the front lines and give my life for this country, as I've proven again when I came out as a whistleblower, not because I wanted the attention, but because the United States government was complicit in genocide. And I did that at great risk. And I'm continuing to push forward at great risk because I love our country. I love our fellow Americans. I want to represent the people of our district. And one thing that I have that Brad Knott, Republican incumbent in this district, that J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, that something that I have that they don't is enough. I have enough. I am satisfied in life with my wonderful family, my station in life, and what I've done. I don't need to prove anything to anyone other than gain the trust of my constituents and serve them with every ounce of my ability. And I know that I can serve in Congress without complicity, without corruption, without being compromised, without taking money, without being bribed. I'm your guy for that. So if we want to be honest about my past, sure. But I will say this, and I mean this. Right now, in this world, we all have blood on our hands because we see the genocide every day. And whether there's nothing we can do about it, that may be the case. We all have blood on our hands. We are watching a genocide in real time. And everybody that may have asked themselves, what would I have done during slavery? What would I have done during the Holocaust? Well, whatever you're doing it. So am I fighting? Do I call for the abolishment of ICE? Yes. Do I call for the abolishment of our funding of a foreign government that is compelled to commit genocide? Yes. Do I call for a reformation and an audit of our Department of Defense and cut spending and actually spend money back here at home? Yes. So as a military member that served for 2.5 decades, I know how to change that system from within. I came from the machine. I can fight the machine. So if people want to disregard that, okay, sorry. For those that support it and realize it, let's do this.
Wow, great. Okay, thank you. I think that's a very fair position, and I also think that I would rather people who've done bad things in the past admit to them and do good. So I mean, people who want to, I'd be interested if the people who are there are a lot of critics out there, and I want to know what their criteria are, because if for these people, it's just once you've done something bad, you're out, then I would like to see what your line is, like what the criteria is for.
Sure, that would be great to know, but I will tell anyone that is in the pro-Palestinian or anti-war movement that is going to turn their back or give the Heisman to the military population, you are doing so to your detriment. Veterans are patriotic. A lot of veterans are starting to see the truth. And if you completely isolate that population and make people feel like, oh, you're just a broken, bad imperialist, you're going to lose a lot of people that can do a lot of good for this country. Don't do that.
Yeah. Everyone has different roles, and I think bringing people into the project is a good thing to do. All right. I think that's about it. What else do you want to tell people? Because thank you for this this very succinct appearance. Where can people learn more about your campaign?
Aguilar for U.S. Congress, all spelled out, all one word. Aguilar4uscongress.com. And on there, you can see my platform. You can see my principles. You can see where I stand, my position on veterans, healthcare, childcare, housing, living wage, where I stand on my positions on everything. But you can also donate. You can also volunteer. You can do phone banking. You can do social media work. You can do door knocking if you're in the district. And if you're in District 13 of North Carolina, vote. Get out and vote. In order to win this district of 518,000 people in this 8-county district, I only need about 275,000 to 300,000 to win. Get out there and vote. Let's make this change. Let's be the change we want. And I'm here to do it. If there's someone that wants to say, oh, well, you're not the guy, well, then step up.
Yeah.
It's free. All you got to do is register with the FEC.
Great. Okay, we'll definitely come back on and we'll talk more about Gaza and Doctors Against Genocide.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll be back up in DC next month. I'll skip February in DC because I'll be out in UC Irvine next week speaking at UC Irvine School of Politics and School of International Affairs about Gaza. So I'll miss this trip to DC with Doctors Against Genocide, but I'll be back up there the end of the month. And then I'll be back up there in March. And then I'm going to spend a lot of time right here in my district, listening to the people of my district, so I can carry the message to Washington on their behalf. So, thank you very much, Katie, for the opportunity. I'm a huge fan, Love your platform. Love your voice. You are a voice of courage. You are a warrior, and I am glad to know you. And I am glad that I could be on your program. It's an honor.
Thank you. Honor for us as well.
Thank you so much, and everybody have a good weekend.
You too. Bye. Bye, Anthony.
Bye.
All right. So yeah, we'll have to have, an interesting question is about veterans benefits. I want to talk about that on another show. That's something I would like to talk about. I don't believe in leaving people. I mean, people are kind of arguing in the comments, so you're incentivizing joining the army if you provide people with benefits. But that's a long discussion that we'll talk about later. Okay. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Phantomus Fanta. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Dr. Marandi. Make sure that you subscribe. If you haven't already liked, you better like. Make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you want to hear the chat with Dr. Marandi on Zionism and Epstein and the Epstein class, you can do that at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Thanks, guys. Bye.
I did everything right and they indicted me. And I don't know what the I'm doing. Antifa!